Perfect.
From the time that I was on my real estate journey, building my team, building my business, and conquering the conversion piece, and then moving into the training and the years of training, it's really amazing how the conversion piece is not so much about always teaching exactly what to say. It's not having the right tools. It's a much bigger picture, because everything that we go through in our entire lives is what forms us into who we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And those fears of what's on the other side of the phone, the fears of success, the fears of failure, and all these fears that come up whenever we're attempting to build a business, we have a choice on how we are able to move through some of those fears.
Mm-hmm.
Do we let life distractions grab a hold of us and we don't finish or complete those things that we know we need to do because the fears are so great? And, I look at all of my trainings as a case study, because we all have fears to overcome. It's just at what point in our journey are we going to be able to overcome those fears, to be able to take the action,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to recognize those feelings of, is it the reality that my leads aren't answering the phone, or is it the reality that I'm not making enough phone calls?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the reality of what's happening with the market? And what are the stories that we're telling ourselves in our head? And that's such a big piece of what is going to really denote success or failure.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's a
it's
lot of us that do tell ourselves the things, and we talk ourselves out of things and then blame everything else in the process of it. Right? If we don't change what we're doing, nothing's going to change.
Well, and what awareness do we have of exactly what we're doing? Do we take responsibility for the exact actions that we are taking in our business, or are we projecting? And that's why I love to hear all the time, every single one of my leads are a bad phone number. Every single one. Nobody answers a phone. Nobody's buying. Because we hear that story once, or we see that a few times, and that's the story we tell ourselves and we believe, and then we use that as our excuse because it's justified. Because everybody else in the industry is using the same excuse. But what happens if you eliminate the excuse and look at it through a different lens and actually don't believe it, and believe that you can make a difference with these leads, and that you can have a conversation, that you can convert? Completely different story.
Yep, absolutely. It's being okay with the process. I find is we get so, like, as we talk about a lot, is getting caught up and hung up on the results of the conversation and the motivation of the leads that we're talking to. And of course, when we talk to, let's say, 3 people today, and none of them are looking to buy, right now or within the near future, everyone's just looking their garbage through tire kickers. Right. Meanwhile, there's 3, or let's say in some cases, looking at systems, I can see that you've actually made contact with 16 out of the 150 people that are in here. So all of them aren't looking to move right away. Right. So again, it's that telling ourselves the story, and putting it out there for the universe to, create the end result for us, or, demotivate us, unmotivate us from doing what we're doing, rather than being okay with the process and understanding that it takes time. We can't force people to do what we want them to do because it works to our benefit. So that's commonly what, I see with, looking at systems, is they're looking at a small fraction of the leads in their system and then putting that same title on all of them. Can you imagine how wonderful it would be if you took that small fraction of leads that were positive and then put that on all your leads, how everything would just turn around, right? Right? All my leads are going to be buying,
But that's kind of been the theme. That's kind of been my theme the last couple of weeks, is we live in a very polarized world. Good, bad, dark, light, right? So really practicing the opposites. Like what comes to your mind, and
Yeah.
then practice the opposite. And it falls in alignment with exactly what you're saying. If you're like, all my leads suck, well, wait a minute. All my leads are great.
Yeah. Here's why this is
Really
great.
embody and believe that you're going to shift.
Yes.
Completely.
Yes. There's always the polar opposite, right? So for everything that's negative, there's always something that's polarized, that's positive about that, right? And it's trying to focus on the positive aspect of what the negative aspect could be. And you just could be genuinely happy as a person if you're able to do that, right? So always looking at the better of the situations, not the worst of the situations.
And that's what I love about yoga, because you know, in the monk world, in the shamanic world, I'm sorry, yes, I don't want to be a monk, but what triggers do they have in life? Sitting on a mountaintop praying all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So when you're on the mat, you're very zen and you're in control of your breath. But true yoga is when you're sitting there calling your leads, is when you're out with your client, to be able to practice that grace and ease and that positivity of you have control of your thought right now in this moment. What do you choose to think? You choose to think and manifest all my leads suck, because that's what you're going to get. Or do you choose to believe that you can truly make a difference? Yeah. It's just the consistency and the persistence.
No, absolutely. I actually read a quote the other day, and it was, anger is just a feeling that we torture ourselves with based on somebody's actions. We make ourselves feel this way. That person didn't do anything necessarily to do it. It's how we accept and receive that and change it to ourselves. And then get upset and angry, and it causes disturbance in our life when it's something that we can just learn to, you know what? I'm not going to let that person, I'm not going to let the fact that these leads aren't answering bother me. But instead we choose to let that bother us, and we create that emotion for ourselves rather than just kind of carrying on, being okay. Yep. You know what? This doesn't bother me.
Well, and we truly let that win. But that's the internal story that we're used to telling ourselves. And a lot of times we do create our own situations to prove that that is truly what we deserve. So it's very interesting dynamics, how all of the business coaching has led into such mindset coaching, because it's not about setting the goal and doing everything you can to get to the goal. It's the mindset behind the goal. And truly, the world has taught us that whole work hard, play hard. I just call that the myth, because if you're working really, really hard and you're not getting the reward, what is the point? How can you get in flow? I mean, usually at that point, if you're working that hard and you are not enjoying it, there's something that's out of kilter in your life.
That's just it's like a surface level content, right? The work hard, play hard. Well, what are you working on? You got to be working on growth, changing things. Just really growing as an individual to be able to play hard, right? But if you keep doing the same thing, working hard and grinding, and it's not working, well, there is no playing it. Then you're just going to get, you're not going anywhere.
Yep, for sure. Let's open it up to some questions.
Yeah, you betcha. So today we do not have a guest of honor. So if anyone does have any questions that they have for Beverly, whether it's respect to your leads, objections, what you're encountering right now when you are calling your leads, conversations that you're having. Some of them fall into the same categories. One of the things I did watch was a coaching. It was just a recorded video, and trying not to assume the situations of our leads. Right. So right now, a lot of people are assuming, people are not buying because of mortgage interest rates, but we assume that. So we kind of lead with that question. Is it because of, is to not do that, is to let your leads talk and tell you what's holding them back. and then address those things. So I know that's a big one for a lot of, North America right now is interest rates. Interest rates is playing a factor, but that's not always the case, right? So there's obviously other objections that are coming into play when we are calling our leads.
And an anonymous attendee posted, yes, waiting till spring objection. I love that one because that really opens up the gate to ask a lot of questions. Because our job that we forget is we have to find out what their situation is and if it's a want or a need. I mean, that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Because for a lot of people, it may not, if they don't have to move, they probably should maybe wait till spring. But depending on what their situation is, those are the layers that we're really challenged with pulling back to unveil what is it that we can help them with, what can we equip them with the right tools to be able to make the best decisions for their family. If they're waiting, it's like, I want to know, okay, well, tell me what is most important to you in homeownership, in whether it's a purchase or whether it's a sale. What is most important to you? Why do you want to wait until spring? And hear what they have to say. Don't assume. Listen to truly what they have to say, because they don't disagree with them. They may be right. And that's where you break into that conversation, really build that commodity, because it is not our job to force somebody into a time frame that's not right for them. Our job is to talk them through it and help them to see different situations that could play out depending on their situation. So they may say, well, I'm just waiting to see what shakes out with the market if the interest rates are going to come down. Okay, understood. What if they don't? What if interest rates are exactly the same, prices are exactly the same, and April's market is just like today? What are your decisions going to be then? Well, I don't know. I'll wait till fall, right? Or I don't know. I'm going to have to move in the spring because my kids are going to be starting university, right? Get to the real reason of the want and the need. And just start asking those questions. Find out the reason for the move, the reason for the purchase, the reason for the sale, and just go deeper. Because you have objections and then you have excuses. And when you start asking those questions, you start to be able to see the differences. A lot of people just say that just to get you off the phone. Yeah. Yep. Because they don't, I have an agent, right? They don't know what else to say. So I'm just going to wait till spring. Like, leave me alone. Because most agents don't know how to continue that conversation, because to most agents, that's a shut door. I'm waiting till spring. Okay, well, I'll call you back in March. Well, if they truly are in a situation that they are going to have to move and the market starts changing before spring, they're probably going to move sooner than spring. So we have to find out exactly what their situation is. Do they own? Do they rent? Now, there's not much getting past waiting on the down payment. There's not much you can do there other than helping them to create the plan, to know exactly what to expect. Just ask them, is there anything that I can help you with in the meantime while you are investing in that, while you are waiting for the interest rates, while you are waiting to see what happens with prices? Because never, ever forget this. The only thing that matters is the monthly payment, period.
Yep.
Find out what they are paying right now. And your job in the moment is to meet their expectations. So once you find out what they are paying right now and what their expectations are for what they are looking to pay in the future, what are their expectations for that amount per month? If you can make that happen, if they have enough equity in their home that they would be able to trade homes, what the hell does it matter if interest rates are high and prices are kind of leveling out right now. What does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
If you can make that number happen for them, I promise you're going to pique some interest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because then if interest rates do come down, all they need to do is refinance.
Mm-hmm. It's going above and beyond what the average individual would do, whether you're on the real estate side or the mortgage side. I've spoken to three. It's my current situation, which is interesting. I went to a broker instead, thinking that he might be able to get me a better deal. He's been known to help, tricky situations. So I was like, okay. I told him the whole scoop. I want to help you. I got this. Da 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 da. Comes back saying, there's not really a lot I can do. I go back to my old mortgage lender because she helped me in the first place and was a whiz at moving things around and, adjusting things to make it happen. And she made it happen the last time around. So, I'll give her a shot. She's the one that came back and said, we can do this. This is what we have to do to make it happen, but we can do this. This extra cash on hand afterwards as well. So it was kind of like, so one person who says that I work in situations basically probably looked at everything from a surface level, didn't think of any, possibilities and kind of moving things around to make it work. He just didn't go to the extra step, right? Yep. Whereas my current agent, she's the one that went through and kind of worked things around and kind of figured out any possible scenario of how we can make this work in order for it to happen. And she was able to make it happen. I've had that happen twice now with people that are mortgage brokers that tell you that they work in situations that are a little bit more complex and they can, make things happen, or they're experienced in that. And then both times they both completely lost. Right. So like you can tell, like it was just very surface level. There was no, trying to orchestrate an alternative plan of any kind of sort. And this kind of falls into like the buyers or the sellers where it's, giving the option and coming up with that plan for them or going that extra mile to make it work for them. Right. See if there's sometimes more we can be doing, or, different viewpoints or different, aspects that can be contributed to make certain deals work depending on somebody's situation.
And a lot
of times it's just very
always look at the situations as it's not over until the fat lady sings. I exhaust every single means. And that's just coming from a solution-based model, right? It's find out what the problem is and figure out the solution. And, sometimes it's impossible. It's like you've got these beer budget people with champagne taste, and it's just being honest with them. That just ain't going to happen. And they already know it anyway.
They're just hoping.
But they will respect you more for it in the long run, because I promise you, there are agents out there that will try to force that square peg in the round hole. And they're like, let's go look at some homes, because then they're thinking, well, if I find them the right home and they fall in love with it, they'll make it happen financially. And that's not doing our due diligence. It's like being the trickster.
Yeah.
And I like to attempt to make things happen for people. And I love the takeaway sale. I love being able to tell them, you know what? This is not the right time for you to buy a house. This is not the right time for you to sell your house. This is not the right time. And then they're like, well, wait, because they don't want to be told. They want to tell. So if you kind of pull it away, they're either going to wholeheartedly agree because they're really not ready and they have no urgency, but know your freaking market, know your numbers, and know what their needs and wants are, and truly listen, because there was nothing more frustrating than hearing people talk about real estate agents and how they don't listen and how they show them homes that they already said, I don't want a house that has this, or I don't want a location that's here, or I don't want a price that's here. Don't try to find something and make it fit. Find what fits and offer it as a suggestion. And treat other people how you truly want to be treated, and don't waste their time just to try to make something happen. That's where my favorite analogy is, just look at your own self. And when you moved last, could somebody have made you move sooner? Probably not. but yet we impart that on other people.
Yeah. Right.
He
It's a
never
big
answers the
deal.
phone. I don't answer my phone.
Yeah. Right. Because so many calls now, it's like, and of course, every time you answer, it's like no one's there. And then there's
Yeah.
people that call that don't have call display, but are people you actually want to talk to. It's very frustrating. So it's, the amount of times that the average person probably answers their calls now compared to before is probably gone downhill just simply because of all those auto dialer, the robo dialer calls and the spam calls and the scam calls and all of this other stuff in between. So the consistency is where they're going to start to recognize your number, that this is the same number that keeps calling me back, and you're going to increase those chances.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think the personal face text, just a real quick video text of, hey, this is Beverly. I know you're looking at homes online. I just wanted to check in and just make it real, because artificial intelligence now, you can be talking to robots and not even know that it's not a real person. And even the music right now, there's artificial intelligence music.
Yeah. Yep.
They've taken, well, my son's a big hip hop. When Juice WRLD, when he passed away, he had archives of written content and music, and now they have all this artificial intelligence. It's not even him singing it, but it's his voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, we've basically killed. I mean, we're totally the Terminator, right? Like we destroyed our own efforts.
I know. It is useful though for anyone if you guys need to formulate an email or text message or what have you. It can be of great assistance in that if you're looking, or you're looking just to rewrite something. Can you rewrite this please from whatever standpoint? Or, and then you can still edit it afterwards, but it's amazing how fast the AI can spit out whatever it is that you're required to do.
Yeah, and it's great for press releases. If you want to do a press release, if you want to write, but you have to be very methodical on what you're telling the Chat GPT. You want to be literally the way that you're going to talk to your client, or the way that you're going to ask your client questions about their home. Tell Chat GPT that I want a article written about this home. Give it all the statistics of the home, and then tell Chat GPT how many words to make it in. And please, 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 please edit it. Especially if you're doing a blog or if you're doing a social media post, edit it. Because I promise you, all these algorithms, they're going to know when it's just AI.
Yeah.
And I feel it's going to be interesting as the days go on. Like, have you ever heard of Elephant Journal?
No.
It's a space where rising writers submit their writings.
Okay.
It's it's like a very minimal fee that people belong to the elephant community to be able to read all the articles. But one of my girlfriends is a writer, and she does astrology writings. And she's had conversations with her editors, because so many writers are taking advantage of AI and being able to differentiate those differences of AI and what's real and what's, because basically I could go write content about astrology, but I don't know jack squat about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And they're just copying it, right? And then you can even learn it from yourself, because when I was trying to do it, and just so you guys know, and again, with editing the content, is I've asked questions because I'm trying to get in like some content, and I keep changing the way I'm asking the question, but the content that it's producing to me is so similar, like so similar in what it's producing. So just imagine yourself asking that question. How many other people are asking that same question, right? And it's probably spitting out the same, if not very similar information, right? So that's where it's being very specific about what it is that you're asking it to write for you or produce for you, give it all the information it needs so it creates something a little bit more different than just the generic response. And then, of course, going in and modifying and editing it. Yeah.
And a
I
quick
did it for a blog post. I copied an article and I just wanted to see, right? I'm like, rewrite this from whatever standpoint, from the viewpoint of a mortgage broker, right? Yeah. So then it rewrote the whole article, pulled out all the components, that the article was about, but switched it up enough to sound it coming from a different perspective.
Yep. And a tip that I learned from Kajabi, I went through a training that they did on AI, and it's basically hire your editor through ChatGPT. So you're going to tell ChatGPT, I'm hiring you to be my editor to write this kind of content. And I want you to write this content like Tony Robbins or whoever really best suits your personality as a professional writer. And when you're asking ChatGPT to do that, it will word it into a framework that is more suited to your personality and to your liking.
Yeah, it's fun to play around with.
For sure. You can go down the black hole for sure.
I know, right? You know how many songs I've written so far? It just spits it out so fast. It's like they're not the greatest, but it's just fun to have sometimes.
It is. It's
really but it's definitely it's also good for you guys if you're like trying to build on your campaign, for example. Creating different text messages. That what's a great way to ask the lead about their motivations through a text message, right? A real estate lead that's looking at listings that's not ready to buy, please create a text message to follow up with respect to their home search, right? So you got to give it all the details.
Yes.
But it will come up with, and I always say when I've done that before, I'll say, give me 7 examples. So it gives you 7 different ways that text message could be written or the alternatives for that text message. So,
and I like it for email subject lines because it will give you a really good email. Like, give me 10 subject lines.
Yeah. So there's different ways with what we're doing here with your leads. And again, subject lines create somebody to open an email in the first place. Right. So, those can definitely be beneficial to utilize as well as the subject lines, as well as,
for sure.
Yeah.
More questions. Awesome. More questions.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
I know we'll kind of wait and I'm sure questions will come in with respect to leads. Now I know we're at the end, 2/3 into November, crazy enough. And as we all know that, markets generally speaking in Canada anyway, different, warmer states in the US are obviously different. Real estate happens year round for some places. We're going into that holiday season where people stop looking as frequently or their searches are slowing down because they've got other things on their plate that they have to focus on. What are some things like that you would be doing with respect to your database? Reaching out to them. Maybe this is your database that you already know their motivations, just checking in. What would that sound like, knowing that we're coming into the holiday season, or business plan. Like what are we doing right now to prepare ourselves to have a great head start come, January, February, March, when the market really starts picking up again.
Yeah, because what you're doing today is setting up your January and February. And we really do easily lose sight of that, right? Because we're so in the moment, we forget that where we are is where we're going to be in 60 days. So it truly is paying attention. So to piggyback on your question about preparing your dashboard, find out where people are for 2024. And that should be your texting and your email correspondence, is setting that dashboard up to find out how many people do you have that are going to be buying in 2024. That's going to be the main objective right now, to know how and when to follow up with people. And it's a super quick question. Do you plan on making a purchase in 2024? Yes, no.
And it
And
could be like, I guess, mass text, right? Do 50 at a time, 50 people at a time. Wait for responses, 50
yeah, don't
people
do
at a
any more
time.
than don't do any more than that, or you'll be a slave to
Yeah.
your.
Yeah. It's just do a little bit and then wait for the responses to come in. And you can see, so if you're mass texting, if you're wanting to, the good thing, depending on the size of your dashboard, when you do that, you can say, okay, I sent this text message worded like this to this 50 people. I got X amount of responses. I sent this same, concept idea, different wording in the text message. I got this many responses. So you can kind of pick and choose which way you formulate the question retrieves a higher response rate as well.
No. Gustavo just asked if we have any scripts for new leads that are coming in that say, I'm just looking. That's the majority of all of your leads, because everybody is just looking. And Gustavo, if you haven't heard my trainings before, my favorite analogy to this is whenever you walk into a store and the sales clerk says, is there anything I can help you with? You're like, no, just looking. Unless you're in a hurry and you're walking in and you need to find it really damn quick. And you're like, hey, I need this. Where can I find it at? And I'm getting out. So we have to pull back those layers. And I always say that, because if that sales clerk would say to you, is there anything I can help you with? You're like, nope, just looking. Say, well, what brings you in today? Is it for something personal? Are you going to a holiday party, or is it for work? What if you were to buy something today to store, what would you be buying for? Oh, it's a gift. Oh, who are you shopping for? Right? You just keep asking the questions. So our leads are the same way. We need to find out, do they own a home? Are they renting? What is their current situation? And what are their future plans? That's it. That's great. You're just looking. Awesome. What's your situation right now? Do you own or do you rent? And then they're going to say, I own. Well, how long have you been in your home? And this is giving you an indicator, right? If they like 2 years, like, wow, you're moving already. It might be a relocation. And say, oh, that's awesome. So what are your future plans? Oh, well, I'm not looking for a few years. Or, I mean, they may generally just be looking, because we have access to everything on the internet right now. So it's finding out, what is their current situation? If they own, how long have they been in their home? And what are their future plans? If they rent, are they in a lease term or are they month to month? And what are your future plans? And that question of, instead of asking, well, when are you looking to buy? When are you looking to be in your next home? Because there's a difference. If you're looking to buy, you're not committing to anything. But if you're looking to move into something, it's a little bit more of a commitment, and it's a little bit more of a deadline for somebody. And, back to the store analogy, the only reason that we actually execute a charge on our credit card or execute going to the mall to buy something is because Christmas Day is December 25th, and we have to have that gift to give to somebody on that day. If that day didn't exist, nothing would make us make that purchase.
Yeah.
So buying a house is the same way, right? And that's like a big ticket item. So there's nothing there making them say, I have to put a contract on a house and I have to move in by March 23rd. Like, it just doesn't happen, right? It's like, well, I'd like to be in a home. I'd like to be in my new home in April. Those are some good indicators, right? What's the process look like? And even if they say this time next year, what's the process look like? So that's how you go a little bit deeper with it, just looking. That's great.
They're all just looking. And I find too, in the past, been speaking, and you don't let that end the conversation, because a lot of individuals stumble on that first. It's normal. Okay, well, if you see anything, let me know. I'll try again, or whatever it is that they end up saying. It's uncomfortable at first. But what I find is when you can keep that conversation going, the leads will actually open up to you, because now they're realizing she's just having a conversation. She's not calling to try to sell me on anything right now.
Yep.
They're actually more willing to speak to you because they don't feel that sales pressure.
Yep. And I mean, we're all defensive. None of us want to get sold to. That's why we don't answer our phone.
Yeah.
And that's why we say just looking whenever, like, no, you don't need to help me. Like, just let me browse, please. Please let me browse. Like,
Yeah.
I'm done talking to people, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which it does come back to Justin's question then. What would you do when a lead registers? I see they use, okay, so we see that they use the search and da da da, but that you know that they're sending you a voicemail and they say in a text that they're just looking. Well, in a text, it's the same way. What are your future plans?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you planning on a purchase in 2024? Because in text, you're
Mm-hmm.
just looking for yes, no's, right? You're just looking to get an idea of what to do with them. And I always put that back on asking, because I get this all the time. When should I follow up with somebody? How do I follow up with somebody? Ask them. When do you want me to check back in with you? When is a good time to check back in? What's the best form of communication? Do you want me to text you, call you, email you? Okay, well, you're saying email to me, but if I send you an email, you don't respond, how can I follow up a second way?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Ensure your future. So with a text, yes, absolutely continue to call them. I don't overthink anything. And that's why I love, 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 love my filters, because it takes the whole thought process out of it for me. Because I just click on the filter. I know that I've never had a conversation with this person. I may see, because what you want to do if they do text you, so that you're not like shuffling all through your notes, in your section right below their information, you can put in their text, said just looking. So that way, if they do answer the phone, that there was text communication. But in reality, if you've never had an actual phone conversation with somebody, all your main objective is find out where they are in a process. That's it. That's all we want to know. Where are you in the process? When do you want to make a purchase happen? That's it. So yes, I continue to call everybody, and I don't care what they're looking at online. I don't care how many times they've looked online. The only time that I really put any stock into their activity is when I'm calling my leads that have been active for 30 or more, or for within the last 30 days, that have registered within the last years. Then I'm like, ooh, look how active they've been. Like, I really want to talk to this person. But again, I don't get hung up on it at all. I just want them to answer the phone, call 23 seconds next, 23 seconds next, 23 seconds next. And once we get that mentality of let the dialer click for 23 seconds and move on to the next, it does eliminate all of that mind chatter of, wow, they were looking at a $500,000 home. That would be a really great sale. They looked at that home 5 times. Maybe they're ready. That's all like just bullshit we're filling our heads with. Just because if they're not going to answer the phone, none of that matters.
Yeah.
So just keep dialing, keep dialing, keep dialing, and never pull anybody out of the dialer or out of your calls if you've never spoke to them, unless they've completely unsubscribed from everything. If they have a bad phone number and they've unsubscribed from text, well, I guess they wouldn't have texted. But if it's a bad phone number and a bad email, get rid of them. But if they've just unsubscribed from text, keep calling them. Yeah, don't ever give up, and just really practice, and don't feel bad, because here's the one thing I had to learn the hard way, right? It's not a sale that you have, so you have nothing to lose. So what if it works? What if you send them a text message and say, hey, I'm just wondering, do you plan on making a move in 2024? No. Okay, great. What are your future plans? 2025? Question mark. Just find out. And then you can tag them. And then you're setting yourself up for potential future success by asking that question. Now you know 2025. Create a 2025 tag and plug them in there. And then you can start creating a follow-up system. If that's a lot of what you're getting responses from, start a follow-up system for 2025. And then you can start mass messaging those people. Hey, I know you're a ways out. Just want to check in, let you know I'm still here. Oh, and by the way, if you're in the area, our community is having a blah, blah, blah this week or next week. Keep them engaged in the community. Keep them up to date of what's going on in the community. And that's why it's important to talk to somebody and just find out where they are. Find out what their hobbies are. Find out what kind of lifestyle they're looking for. And those are really the best questions, right? It's like, what kind of lifestyle are you looking for whenever you move? How close do you want to be to stores? What is your favorite store? What is your favorite restaurant? And don't be afraid to communicate personally like that. Remember, we're in the days of AI. There's no personality that is personal. There's a lot of personality with AI. I mean, that AI is sometimes better than actual people, but it's not fully, completely personal because the AI is glitchy.
It can be.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so. Very much so.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Great questions, though. Keep them coming.
No, exactly. There's always going to be the just lookers, right? And it's really just learning to handle that, because I can promise you a lot of those just looking people have full intentions on making a move within the next 3 to 6 months. Right.
Yes.
And a lot of us just kick them to the side as if they're garbage. But we fail to ask the questions.
Right? Learn to be a great question asker. And that's what I say. I don't go by scripts. I go by my questions. And my questions are the exact same every single phone call. They never veer. Because honestly, you don't need scripts. You shouldn't be talking. You should be asking questions and letting them talk. Because in what they're telling you is where the questions come. So you should always be listening with that question in mind, because you have to know a little bit more to be able to help them, to be able to assist them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go back to the restaurant days, right? When a server comes to your table and you're not quite sure what you want to order, because I look at everything on the menu and I have a really hard time making decisions on what I want to eat because I like everything.
Yeah.
I hate whenever I ask the server, so what should I get? So I started asking, this is my first time here. I've never been here before. What is the one thing on the menu that if I go tell my friend that they have to eat here, this is going to blow my socks off. So, right, I'm like leading them in, right? Now, you have those servers that go to the most expensive thing on the menu because they truly don't know. So then I started, so when you're on break, what do you eat? And if they don't eat the food from the restaurant,
yeah. Like,
you don't want their advice.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So a lot of that's going back to the questions that we're asking them, right? It's if you're asking the right questions in the right way, you're going to get the results and the answers that you're looking for. But you've got to start playing with asking questions. And that's why when I'm out in situations that don't matter, I ask really creative questions because it helps my creative skills whenever I am on the phone asking the sales questions. Because then sometimes we're afraid to ask the questions because we don't want to hear the answer. But we really have to get over that. And if you remember nothing else, you didn't have the sale in the first place, so you've lost nothing. And it's building up and it's getting better with every phone call. And oh my God, please, please, please use the recording. God bless you. Use the recording functionality and listen to your calls. Now that I'm in my yoga space, I feel like I'm calling leads all over again because it's very, very uncomfortable. And I record. I had a class today at 11 o'clock. I recorded the whole hour. And yes, I will watch it. And yes, I will listen to myself. And it will be freaking painful.
Yeah.
But that's the only way, because when you're in it, you're perceiving it and you're thinking about it from one perspective because you're in it.
Yeah.
But when you're on this side listening to it,
watching,
it's a completely different.
And you're just more mindful of things, right? Yes. You see different ways. So, example, like when you're watching yourself, you see the expressions you make, the faces that you're like, oh, or your body language when you're talking to people. It just makes you more aware of things that you normally aren't aware of.
Well, and great point, Crystal, because, oh my gosh, whenever Zoom came about and I wanted video content, It was much easier for me to just record. I would just pop Zoom on and start dialing, right? And you get a mirror right in front of you whenever you're on Zoom. It's like watching you. So yes, when you're watching yourself, put Zoom on and record it that way.
Yeah.
And go back, just make a note as to time, like end it right when that conversation ends, end it, pop that in as a recording and watch, because you know exactly where it is then in the video. Just go to it and watch yourself. It's empowering to see what your expressions are. Watch yourself while you're live on the phone call.
You'll actually probably smile a lot more. You'll be more expression, like you'll be more involved in that conversation, not just kind of on a call, making some calls.
You know what, Crystal, I did not even think about it until this just came up, because what do I teach, right? I teach how to make those phone conversations. I got so freaking comfortable with it that I could do it with my eyes closed. But now I'm in a completely different element. And being the teacher, it's so uncomfortable. And it literally feels like the days when I started picking up the phone and that discomfort. I hated it.
It's the first classes, it's the first whatever that you're just like, I know I got this, but if there was an exit door that was easy and someone else had this and it would still work out okay, I'd probably take it. It's that feeling. It's that, the fight or flight.
If I do it wrong, they won't come back.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
We truly have to remember. My class yesterday, one person showed up. I'm like, yes, person, thank God, right?
Yeah.
Because then I'm not screwing up like 10 people, right?
Yeah, it's just.
But you can't look at it that way, because I truly 110% believe no matter what, we attract the exact person that we are meant to attract exactly where we are. And that, my friends, is why more people don't answer the phone. That is exactly why. And I've always said that. And I think you've heard me say that, right? When I go into a database and I'm making phone calls, I have zero expectation. I have zero fear. I cannot wait to have a conversation. So I have more people answering the phone. It's the energy that you project out while you're doing the thing. So don't ever worry about it, because if you're not meant to have a conversation, they ain't going to answer the phone.
No.
I promise you that. So the more, I was going to say more better. the more versed you get with your voice and the more comfortable you get with your questions, that's where you're going to find it's going to become that challenge of, I just want somebody to answer the phone for a completely different reason.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm dying to have this conversation. Like, I just got to know.
Yeah.
Instead of, I need to answer the phone because I need to convert and I need money in my bank account. Yeah, it's a completely different perspective. I think I just taught myself more on our call today than I've taught anybody else, to be honest. Like, okay, now I can't wait to get a yoga mat. Well, right? It's like, I have a baseline, and I've always said that our biggest weaknesses, we have a choice. We can live in that weakness and say we're not good at it. And we can continue that loop in our head. And then we want to hire, right? Will you call my leads? Will you call my leads? Because we don't want to do it because it's so uncomfortable. Or we can make that choice to just keep doing it and keep doing it. And it gets a little bit easier and it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah.
To the point that it's like brushing your teeth. Now, I would be lying if I said to you, if someone said, call my leads, so many years of that hesitation, it never goes away. It's there. But the more you do it, the quicker you can get back to that stable.
Yeah.
You can pull out of it.
Like
and go, I'm just calling leads. Oh, hello, nervous system. Like, whatever. I'm calling leads. I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. She calls in and you're fine.
And we always do, no matter what. And I think the older we get, we're not putting ourselves in a position to learn new things as much. Because when we're going through school, we're university in Canada, when we're going through the lessons, we're constantly learning, right? Like we have a test coming every Friday is a test.
Yeah.
Study for the test, right? We're always learning. We're always in learning mode. But then when we get out of school, we tend to stop that learning process. So then when you're 53 years old, you're like, oh my God, I got to learn something. I can't remember anything.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I think learning new things does become a little bit more of a handicap as we get older because we're not used to learning new things. But the one thing that I can guarantee without absolute doubt is the more you do it, you will learn. And you will learn. And I even remember, oh my God, my first listing presentation, learning the listing presentation. So scary.
Yeah.
You go, you're like everything, like your kneecaps are sweating, like everything is sweating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you deliver it. And every time you deliver it, you have like the other person has a rise and like, oh, that's interesting. Trust me, your subconscious remembers that. So then the next time you present, you use that. You're like, oh, that was a good phrase. I made that one, so I'm going to bring that into this presentation. And then something else comes up in this presentation. You're like, ooh, I'm using that.
Yes.
By the time you get 10 under your belt,
you're good.
You got it.
And you're still learning though, right? Because then you come up with different situations as time progresses, the market changes, and you have to change delivery and, you know, different scenarios as to why people are moving. And we have to be a little bit more compassionate, sincere sometimes, right? So it's always a learning curve, and it's always intimidating. You know, when I first got into, I guess, working in real estate, I think I've told you this before. I was an unlicensed assistant for a commercial realtor and developer. You give me a list, call these people. That was the first thing he did. Gave me a list and said, call these people. And I'd never cold called in my life, ever. And I sat there, but he sat right beside me. So I couldn't even push it off. I couldn't even push it off as if like, I was going to find something else to do and maybe make some calls. It was like, okay, he's sitting right beside me. I have to make these freaking calls. And it got easier. So the first part of calls was he's like, find these people. They have big chunks of land in between whatever. See if they'd be interested in selling. Right. So I kind of called those people, learn gradually what worked to get the appointment for him to actually have a conversation. And it was really simple, but it took several calls to do it. And that was easy. Where it started to get more complicated, those sweaty palms, is when they had a lease unit, and now they were very proactive. So they wouldn't just put a unit up for lease. You know, it could be retail, it could be whatever. They wouldn't just sit there with a sign and hoping that businesses contact them. I would be contacting businesses, let's put it that way. So I'd be contacting, you know, the real estate and development of Smart Centers, you know, whoever the real estate division of Winners is, the real estate, all these people, and having to talk to them about this unit. And these are people at the time, and probably still are, I'm not going to say at the time, are way more educated when it comes to, rental leasing and these big development, whatever. And they'd be talking to me, and I just remember sweating. Like my palms are sweating. You start to kind of like, I am way in over my head right now in this phone call, right? But the more I did it, the easier it got. It never got like, you know, obviously over time your knowledge improves and increases and things like that. But then you start to build rapport with these people. So they're familiar with who you are when you're calling and talking to them. But it was very nerve wracking. And I think that for myself, if I was just given that and just someone said, hey, do this, because it was so nerve-wracking and unfamiliar, I probably would have completely avoided the situation, right? But the more I did it, the better I got at it, the more comfortable I got at it, you know, the different things, and it was more empowering that way. You felt like you accomplished something. You know, I grew as a human, and I was able to do this, whereas before I would have totally been like, no, thanks.
And it is, you get to that point. I was afraid of heights, and I'm a competitor. I don't lose. And we went on a retreat, and it was a team building action where you had to go in it was kind of like Survivor. You had to go on all these little different stages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one was a rock wall. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Now, one of the guys that was in my group, he was in the military. I'm like, Matt, he got this. But everybody else in our group was like geriatric. I'm like, ain't none of them climbing that rock wall. Like geriatric and overweight.
Yeah.
And so Matt tried it. He got like 3 pegs up, and he's like, I can't do this. I'm like, oh my God. I was the only other one. I'm like, I can't lose. I can't lose. And my fear of losing, and it was the very first challenge. Yeah. I'm like, but I can't lose the first freaking challenge and not even do it. Yeah. My fear of losing was greater than overcoming the fear of heights.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm looking at this wall, and I'm like, all right, this is happening.
Yeah.
And it was literally just one hand movement at a time, one foot movement at a time, not even thinking that I'm completely roped up, right? Like there's no, you can't get hurt.
Yeah.
But the effort that went into that and how difficult of a process physically it was, to the point where because then you know how the walls start to go like this, right? So your body weight starts to get a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
You're like, and then you got to ring the bell. So then you got to stabilize yourself enough to ring that bell.
Mm-hmm.
When I rang that bell, there was such a shift in the empowerment, because I did something that I said I could never do. And it really does change the freaking game. And it's what's your fear? Is your fear more of not succeeding, or is it of not being able to convert your leads because your leads suck, or you don't want to get on the phone? It's like, really take a strong look at yourself and ask yourself why you're not meeting the expectations that you were looking to gain by paying for AgentLocator. And be real with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Be real with yourself. Because when we are real with ourselves and we know, do you know how easy it would be for me? And this used to be me back in the day, right? Oh, I just told everybody that I recorded my hour-long yoga video and I'm going to watch it. And then you never watch it. And then you never learn from it. And then you never listen to it. That's where that imposter syndrome starts to come in. And that fraud syndrome starts to come in, because you're not really who you say you are. And that will prevent you from moving forward. So pay attention to your intention. Ooh, that was a good one. Pay attention to your intention and be real with yourself. And, really self-discover, why aren't you where you think you should be? And answer those questions for yourself, and recognize what discomfort does come up and what needs to happen to overpower that. And, give yourself grace. It's okay to feel that way. It's totally normal. Totally normal. Your nervous system's going, hey, don't do that. You don't know what's going to happen to you. Well, I promise you, you're going to die.
Oh gosh,
you ain't gonna die.
It's the things we tell ourselves, right? The things we tell ourselves.
Monkey mind. Yes.
Very much.
Oh gosh, I thank everybody, because I came away with a huge takeaway. Just get over your own damn self.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of us, so we need to do that, right? So being humble.
So all y'all that think I'm so great at calling leads, I'm challenging myself at a completely new level. So I'm right back in the trenches with you, just in a different realm.
Watch yourself while you call. It'll your energy, your expression, everything is going to shift, because now you're kind of focusing on yourself while you're talking, as if you're making a video for somebody, and you're not sharing it with anyone. It's just, unless you want to. But it's more for yourself. You're a little bit more mindful, right? And kind of looking at yourself and, sitting up straight, or whatever it might be, right? In those conversations.
Well, and I heard a great phrase.
You can use Google Meet.
I heard a great phrase, and it's so empowering, right? And I'll just leave everybody with this. Fast forward a couple of years into the person that you want to become, into that person and that future self that you see. What would that future person do right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's going to get you to there
Mm-hmm.
is not what got you to here.
No, it's manifesting it, right? So
if you see yourself in 3 years doing X amount of transactions, what is that future self doing with their phone calls? What is that future self doing with their business? And act as if.
Yeah.
And that,
yes. Just envision it. Close your eyes. What are you wearing? What car are you driving? Who are you hanging out with? What are you doing every day when you wake up in the morning? What's your actions? Like, so it's envisioning and manifesting it out there. And you'll be surprised at, and if we keep doing that, then it kind of gives us a little bit of encouragement, but it will gradually start happening as long as you are manifesting.
And astrologically, do you know that December 31st is 123, 123?
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
There's a lot going on astrology-wise right now. So this is the time absolutely to set your intentions, get it in writing, start journaling, and manifest your 2024, because there's some powerful planets shifting on January 1st. And this is definitely a time of intention. Even if you don't follow astrology, just trust it. It's powerfw. But I love the 123, 123.
Yeah.
I love numbers. I love dates.
You know how many people are going to get married on that day?
Oh, probably.
A lot.
Yeah.
Just because people like to get married on certain dates, right? Yeah. And that'll probably be a big one. That'll be a big one.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
I think we'll be back next week, won't we? Is next week?
No, I don't think so. No, because I think we have 5 weeks.
So this is like 5 weeks in November.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be the 6th of December.
Go.
When we're back.
All right.
Awesome. Perfect. So thanks everyone for jumping on. Thanks, Beverly. We'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.